Would Mario or Sonic make a better Green Lantern? And what about the Red Lanterns? Is Kratos angrier than Doom Guy? Once again, I'll be explaining every major Lantern Corps and picking 3 perfect candidates for each, all from the world of gaming. I'll cover the whole emotional spectrum, including the black and white cores. And by the way, the blue lanterns this time are my favorite. You're not going to want to miss my picks for those. So let's not waste any more time. Taking it from the top of the emotional spectrum, we have the Red Lanterns of Rage. Using the light of anger, the Red Lanterns' rings can create constructs and also transform the blood of their wearers to burning plasma that can be regurgitated and burned through the constructs of other lanterns. Red Lanterns are angry, violent, and destructive, often at their own expense. Their self-destructive red ring can't be removed without killing the user, a dark pact to dedicate their lives to rage and hatred. But the healing hope of a blue ring can return their body to normal. Now, my first pick for the Red Lantern Corps is a pretty obvious one. Doom Guy. You know, the guy from Doom. Okay, he's usually called Doom Slayer now, but regardless, Doom Guy hates demons. That is his whole character. He's like Freerin on steroids. He basically never talks or explains his actions or even shows his face that much, but he hates demons so much that he became a mythic force of nature, a legendary monster that all of hell is terrified of. He's always on, a cold, focused, methodical rage. We saw in Doom Eternal, he was just so angry, so Jesus-pilled, that he gave up his humanity to become the Slayer. That focused rage and willingness to have your form altered, Doom Guy is a perfect candidate for the burning blood of a red ring. Next, really shifting genre gears here, is Trevor Phillips of GTA 5. In the world of DC, Trevor would be the exact sort of loser a red ring would seek out, sort of like a twisted Guy Gardner. Trevor grew up with abusive parents that instilled him with a crazy rage that got him kicked out of the military and turned him into an antisocial criminal freak. A very funny one, but still. He's trying to build a meth empire and clearly really values loyalty, but his anger always boils over and just shatters everything apart. Although, when his anger is focused, he becomes this ruthless machine, like when he took down the O'Neill brothers in a crazy rampage. Trevor is an obvious Red Lantern. As a quick aside, I did consider Kratos for a Red Lantern. Much like Doom Guy, he's on this insane vengeance mission and just slaughters everyone in his way, but in the same way that a blue lantern ring neutralizes the power of a red, Kratos chilled out a ton after discovering the power of hope in God of War 3. Hope literally quelled his rage. While he may have been a Red Lantern in the past, I think he's more suited for a blue ring now. That said, you know who's a lot like Kratos but never gave up the rage? Asura of Asura's Wrath. One of the 8 guardian generals and protectors of Gaia, Asura was framed for murder by his fellow generals, and his family was attacked. Wife killed and daughter kidnapped, and after being cast into the underworld for hundreds of years, Asura finally emerged, leading a campaign of blood and destruction, all fueled by his unending wrath. His rage is so strong that he wipes out the entire pantheon in ballistic cosmic battles. Now, he does temper his anger enough to focus on saving his daughter Mithra, but this is just a focus for his wrath. Don't get me wrong, he is still super pissed. And like, come on, the game's true ending has Asura killing Chakravartin, the god of literally everything, and only finally dying peacefully after his vengeance is fulfilled. Now, for the Orange Lanterns of Avarice, or for a word most people actually understand, greed. The Orange Lantern is a single user who hoards all the rings and the power battery for himself, and uses the light to create constructs of living beings to fight for them as a one-man army. The orange light is very tempting. It preys on the greed inside your heart and amplifies it, making the wielder paranoid that everyone is out to steal the ring, steal their power. But I still made it a point to pick characters that were already very greedy and would gladly accept the ring and everything it brings. Off the top, he's enterprising, mischievous, and individualist who values money almost as much as garlic. Wario. The dark opposite of the hero Mario, Wario is always scheming something. Jealous of Mario's fame and fortune, he's usually trying to find a way to steal it. And when he's not trying to ruin Mario's day, Wario can be found hoarding treasure and wealth. But his greed isn't just about money. He's gluttonous, egocentric. He's sort of like a dragon that protects its hoard. If the dragon was ambitious, but also fat and smelly. So maybe he's not a dragon exactly. Anyway, for a slightly more tragic look at an Orange Lantern candidate, we have Dutch from Red Dead Redemption. Originally this super charismatic and eloquent gang leader who's always talking about freedom from the government and corporate greed, he eventually betrays his ideals and becomes a victim to his own greed. Just like how an orange ring corrupts you, the whole Vanderlyn gang crumbles as Dutch becomes paranoid of John and Arthur and obsessed with escaping to this better life. He abandons all his principles for this elusive life, and eventually recedes into a shadow of the man he used to be. He has an incredibly tragic ending, killing himself, but that's just scratching the surface of our next pick, who's an even darker look into the depths of despair that greed can bring. Tom Nook, from the Animal Crossing series, is an annoying little bitch. Whatever game you're playing, Tom is always cooking up some new grift, or, excuse me, totally legitimate business. He's in real estate, retail, even land development. There are countless ways for him to rip you off. He's a loan shark, a billionaire with an ever-expanding corporate empire, always looking for a new angle. Did you know that if you add up all your payments for a house, you are paying Tom 9 million bells over the course of a single game? Yeah, this sleazeball is greedy enough for an orange ring. In fact, he might even be a villain. But that's right on cue, because our next core tends to attract a lot of villains. The Yellow Lanterns of the Sinestro Corps wield the power of fear, charging their rings with their ability to spread fear and use it to control and manipulate others. The Yellow Rings can create constructs of your greatest fears, literally reading the minds of their victims to generate the scariest thing possible. To be a great Yellow Lantern, you have to be scary, be good at using that fear to control others, and also not fall victim to fear yourself. I want to start this core with a few honorable mentions. Pyramid Head from Silent Hill 2 and Nemesis from Resident Evil 3. Both iconic horror villains made to stalk the player and have scared me into a new change of pants on multiple occasions. They're both entities that radiate fear, but for the scary bad guy hunting the main character, I'm going to go with a more niche choice, Slender Man from Slender the 8 Pages. Yes, he's a creepy, enigmatic monster man that was famous for scaring YouTubers and their audiences in 2012. But if you're familiar with the lore, fear of Slender Man actually acts as a mind virus, slowly co-opting those he stalks until they are overcome with his terrifying influence and transformed into one of his proxies. The Slender Man's very essence commands order through fear, just like a Yellow Lantern. My second pick is a lot less villainous. He's actually one of my favorite heroes from modern gaming, Jin Sekai, the Ghost of Tsushima. After the ruthless Mongols invaded his island and toppled the samurai forces that kept the peace, Jin was forced to gradually abandon his code of honor, adopting tactics of deceit and manipulation to drive back the invaders. After every town he liberated, Jin slowly crafted the legend of the Ghost, an impossibly powerful warrior that could disappear in clouds of smoke, fought with a flaming blade, and made his enemies spontaneously foam at the mouth and die. Jin embraced fear as a tool to combat the Mongols, even after it destroyed his honor and his relationship with his only remaining family. He would accept the power of a yellow ring, despite the dishonor, all for the greater good. And lastly, we return to the villainous side of things with the calculating M. Bison of Street Fighter. Practically an analog for Sinestro himself, Bison is the leader of the criminal organization Shadaloo, and seeks to dominate the entire world through power and fear. His psycho power is fueled by fear and other negative emotions, and he uses it to control minds and subjugate others into his army. His attempts at scraping together power and ruling through fear are why most of the characters are even involved in the tournament to begin with. He mind-controlled Cammy, killed Chun-Li's father and Guile's best friend, and is actively trying to subjugate Ryu. He is your classic megalomaniac, yellow to a T. But the Sinestro Corps' greatest enemies are the heroes of the universe, champions of willpower who possess the power to conquer fear. The Green Lantern Corps. Centered on the planet Oa and stationed all around the universe, the Green Lanterns use willpower to create their constructs and have the greatest baseline strength compared to all the other rings. Green Lanterns are brave, headstrong, and heroic, which makes my first pick super obvious. The Princess's champion and hero of time, Link of The Legend of Zelda. Link is more than just your prototypical hero. He wields the Triforce of Courage. He's literally chosen by the goddesses as the perfect person to combat fear. Supernaturally brave, he selflessly offers his life to defend the innocent and destroy evil. What can I say other than duh? Despite always coming from humble beginnings, he never shies from insurmountable odds. Giant monsters, dragons, or demon kings, Link is the OG. He even wears green. You get it. For my next choice, I went with someone who honestly could have worn a yellow or even a blue ring at different points in his life. Ezio of Assassin's Creed. Originally driven by revenge after his family was executed, Ezio soon discovered the world of assassins and Templars, and his sense of justice evolved to take center stage. He always tackled the Templars despite how the odds may have been stacked against him. Obviously, being an assassin could have led him down a path similar to Jin Sekai, cloaked in fear, but after discovering the ancient assassin Altair's library, Ezio decided his purpose was to inspire others instead of control their destinies. Repeatedly, he was a man who put what he was supposed to do over what he personally desired, the definition of willpower. And for my final GL, I had to go with another green character. But first, just a side note. Most protagonists would make good Green Lanterns because heroes generally display willpower and courage. So Mario, Clive Rossfield, Solid Snake, Samus Aran, they'd all be great Green Lanterns. I know I'll hear about it in the comments if I don't mention your favorite hero, Steven, so I just had to get in front of it. But yeah, Cloud Strife would be a great Green Lantern. So would Geralt of Rivia. They're not my final pick, though. That goes to John 117. The greatest soldier of the Spartan 2 program, Master Chief, is the ideal Green Lantern. Chosen, genetically modified, cultivated, and trained into the perfect warrior, John is incredibly focused, resilient, and selfless. His duty is always to the greater good. He overcame the Covenant, the Flood, and his willpower is so great that he was able to fight through both the loss of Cortana and her return as an enemy rogue AI. Master Chief always puts the value of human life above all else, despite how brutal his own life was, and continues to be. His courage is relentless, which is why I know that if he was real, he would relentlessly attack those like and subscribe buttons, which you totally should too, because you want to be like Master Chief, right? I hope you do. Speaking of hope, that's the emotion used by the Blue Lanterns, the most powerful yet passive core. Blue rings have the special ability to neutralize red rings and supercharge green rings, as well as offer a healing effect, because hope can sate rage and strengthen willpower. But blue rings can't be used for combat unless in the presence of a green ring, because hope without the will to act on it is impotent. When picking these Blue Lanterns, I wanted to go with characters who suffered great hardships but never gave up, always believing that a better world was possible despite the overwhelming odds. These characters don't just hold hope in their hearts, they inspire others to be hopeful as well. And first is the hero of the ruined future, Silver the Hedgehog. Born in a world where everything had been completely obliterated by the rampaging demigod Iblis and his flames of disaster, Silver used his gifts to fruitlessly fight back, defeating monsters and putting out fires wherever he could. But even with no chance to stop this worldwide threat, Silver never gave up. And when his one chance to save reality by traveling back to the past turned out to be a manipulation by Mephiles the Dark, he still didn't lose hope. Even at the end of all timelines, facing down the mad god Solaris, Silver took a hold of the future, shaping it with his own hands. Silver is hope incarnate in the Sonic world, in the same way that Sonic is freedom. Freedom, but not free man, because that's my next pick. Gordon Freeman from the Half-Life franchise. Maybe a silent protagonist, but his actions speak far louder than any words could. As a theoretical physicist thrust into the front lines of an interdimensional invasion, Gordon becomes a messianic figure of sorts, a beacon of light for humanity as they fight the Combine regime, even after they've completely taken control of the Earth. He serves as an inspiration for Alex, Eli, and the entire Resistance, all by applying his scientific knowledge and facing down the enemies that have him severely outmatched. The world of Half-Life really is a dark one, which is why Gordon Freeman's hope shines so bright. Just like our final Blue Lantern, the ultimate hope himself, Makoto Naegi of the Danganronpa series. And yes, it's Danganronpa, not Danganronpa. I don't give a shit how they pronounced it in V3. Look, Makoto is so hopeful, it's kind of insane. He was thrown into a nightmare scenario, imprisoned in high school with 14 other students and forced into a killing game by a seemingly supernatural, sadistic teddy bear, Makoto never once considered killing another student or succumbing to the overwhelming despair of the situation. Every time one of his friends suffered a brutal death or Monokuma added a new horrifying twist, he never chose to fear his fellow students or what may be outside the walls of Hope's Peak High School. He always believed they would survive, find a way out, and make the world a better place. And this single-minded optimism not only inspired the entire world watching, but even defeated the ultimate despair. Now, I did consider including Nagito here, but that dude is nuts. He might be a better fit for another core, like, hey, would you look at who's up next? The Indigo tribe is the most unique faction of lanterns, not a core, but a community all connected by the Indigo light of compassion. Tribe members aren't chosen for how they embody compassion, but the opposite. The most evil, heartless, psychopathic monsters throughout the universe are found and overwhelmed by the power of compassion, eventually brainwashed into becoming a member and serving others. Indigo lanterns have the ability to teleport throughout the universe and can copy the unique powers of any other color ring that's in close proximity. My first thought for an Indigo lantern was Majora from Zelda Majora's Mask, the crazed entity that possessed Skull Kid and brought the moon crashing down into Termina. But Majora isn't exactly a psychopath, he's more of an otherworldly being with a unique psychology we don't really get a lot of insight into. Instead, let's go with some bread and butter certified psycho killers. We're starting with the Pyro from Team Fortress 2. While they embody a cheerful and whimsical demeanor, the Pyro is completely deranged, burning down everything in sight, friends and enemies alike. There's really not much more to the character than that. They're broken mentally. We never learn any sort of backstory or motivation. We did get a short animation, Meet the Pyro, that shows us inside the Pyro's mind, a fantasy world of rainbows and flowers that only grows more fun and happy as fire and carnage are rained down in the real world. Whether these are delusions or just a representation of how the Pyro feels is never elaborated on, but either way, an Indigo ring would stop these violent tendencies in an instant. Moving on, we have the psycho clown and legendary villain, no, not the Jonkler, Kefka from Final Fantasy VI. After being experimented on with a Magitech infusion, Kefka lost all empathy and arguably humanity, transforming into a complete nihilist with plans for not world domination, but desolation. He poisoned the water of Doma and killed thousands of people just for laughs, enslaved Terra, used the power of the Triad to reshape the world into his demented playground like a psychotic god. The Indigo ring would definitely seek him out and fill the hole where his humanity once was. Lastly, I did mention that I considered Nagito of Super Danganronpa 2 for this core, but I don't really want to use more than 2 characters from any single franchise, and there is a much better choice from Danganronpa. The Mastermind, creator and arbiter of the entire killing game, and the cause of the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history, Monokuma himself. What's more sadistic and heartless than forcing a bunch of hopeful young high schoolers to kill one another for your entertainment? Of course, Monokuma's true identity, which if you don't know, you can jump to this time code to avoid spoilers, is Junko Enoshima, the ultimate despair. A super genius with psychopathic tendencies, she became so bored with humanity that she concluded the only truth was that nothing matters and that overwhelming despair was the answer to everything. The answer to her boredom. And so, she ended the whole world in an incredibly brutal way. Seriously, if you watch the D3 anime, that shit got dark. Luckily, hope prevailed. And now for the final color of the emotional spectrum, at least the primary one, is the violet light of love, used by the Star Sapphire core. The Star Sapphires channel love to create crystalline constructs that can trap or protect their beloveds, and they grow stronger the more violet rings are close by, as love is strongest when you share it. Even though the Star Sapphires use love, it's not just pure or romantic love. Their rings can be charged by platonic, familial, or even possessive or unhealthy love. All that matters is that you feel it strongly, strong enough that it overrides your other emotions, which is exactly what happened with my first choice, Joel Miller from The Last of Us. After the clicker outbreak and the death of his daughter, Joel became a bitter and lonely man surviving only for himself, and mostly keeping others at an arm's distance. But after being tasked with escorting a young Ellie across the country so she could help in formulating a potential clicker cure, something changed. Joel found a new fatherly love for Ellie that he once held for his daughter Sarah. Joel and Ellie became so close that when he learned Ellie would not survive the procedure that would save humanity, he chose to kill the Fireflies and save his surrogate daughter, essentially dooming the world in the process. Joel's love overwhelmed his reason, his fear, his anger, and it's a choice he stood by. He would be an excellent candidate to wield the violet light of love. But not all love stories are so bitterly wholesome. Sometimes they're just terrifying. Enter Monica from Doki Doki Literature Club. A rogue AI, the one non-romanceable character in a dating sim that gained sentience and fell in love with the player, she systematically rewrote the code of the game, altering the personality traits of the other girls to make them increasingly more erratic and violent, leading to all of their deaths, so she was the only one left. Just Monica. Her psychotic, possessive yandere love is horrible, but the Star Sapphires don't discriminate. Monica's terrifying love would make her a fantastic violet ring wielder. Last, but certainly not least, can you get any more possessive than actually possessing the person you love? Like, through kidnapping? Well, that's the King Koopa's whole MO. Bowser loves Princess Peach, despite how much she wants him to not be doing that, and he's constantly devising new schemes to show her his affection. Topple the Mushroom Kingdom, travel the whole world, take her across the entire galaxy this time. Bowser even tracks down Peach when she's on vacation. Like, dude, come on. Now, yes, Bowser is egotistical, short-tempered, generally brutish, but at the heart of it, he's always motivated by one thing. His peaches. The purple ring is spot on. Now that we've covered the entire emotional spectrum, what about when there is no light, just darkness? That's when you get the Black Lanterns, who represent the lack of all emotion, of all life, the black core of death. Black rings are like a zombie virus, overtaking those who are dead or have died before. Black rings can summon a twisted copy of every ring power, as well as cast a shadow that shuts off the other rings, making them useless. Black Lanterns need to be emissaries of death, undead soldiers of the underworld who relish in the destruction of life. And boy, do I have 3 perfect picks for that. My first Black Lantern is also the first character you see when you boot up Undertale, the sadistic, soulless monster, Flowey. The reincarnation of Azrael, born without a soul, he cannot feel genuine emotions and is only driven by a nihilistic desire to kill. This would normally qualify him for an Indigo ring, but Black fits better because he literally cannot feel emotion, has no soul, and has been dead before. He loves murder, manipulating the save system to kill characters over and over again, and he even supports the player during the genocide route, pitching an ending where he destroys everything, the entire world, bringing total death to everything everywhere. Our next emissary of the dead, bearer of the Frostmourne blade and the Helm of Dominion, the Lich King from World of Warcraft. Originally Arthas Menethil, after taking up Frostmourne to battle back the Lich's army, Arthas himself was possessed by its evil spirit and transformed into the mythic Monster King, killing his own family and becoming the champion of death. After claiming the Frozen Throne, he schemes to draw in powerful heroes and slay them to join his army of the undead. The Lich King spreads death everywhere through his Scourge army, plague of undeath, and countless souls he traps in the Frostmourne. With a black ring, he would cover all of Azeroth in the eternal frost of empty lifelessness. And lastly, probably my favorite pick, a heartless serial killer who played with the souls of his victims even after being transformed into an undead monstrosity. The purple guy himself, Springtrap. It is William Afton from Five Nights at Freddy's. The FNAF franchise was always cloaked in death, with haunted animatronics stuffed full of dead bodies, but it took years before we were able to unravel the mystery of who created this building full of monsters. Afton, who was an egotist and psychopath, murdered nearly a dozen children and experimented with their souls, creating Remnant and fabricating new horrors beyond his understanding. And when the vengeful spirits took their revenge, Afton was killed inside the very golden bodysuit he used to commit the murders, and a new undead threat was born, Springtrap. As a zombie who seeks only to spread death, Springtrap is the perfect entry into the Black Lantern Corps. But where there is darkness, there too shall be light. The White Lantern Corps uses the white light of life, the combination of every color of the emotional spectrum, representing freedom, creativity, and a mastery of emotions. White rings can completely obliterate black rings and their influence, curing the zombies of the power of death and perfectly recreating every power of the other colored rings. The white light also holds the life equation, the ultimate creative power of the universe, which lets the wielder reshape reality and write new life into existence. To wield a white ring, you either need to have a complete mastery of all 7 emotions of the spectrum, or be such a great champion of life and freedom that the ring is gifted to you by a current White Lantern. And I think the first gaming hero who would be gifted a white ring is the Keyblade combatant from the Destiny Islands, Sora of Kingdom Hearts. Of course, Sora is a protagonist who would certainly be cut out for a green or a blue ring, but I think he deserves a white ring because he's so closely tied to the concepts of light and life, directly overcoming the darkness of the Heartless with the power of his warmth, creation, and vitality. He always fights to save his enemies instead of destroy them. He wants to overcome the darkness that controlled Riku. He helped Roxas find meaning despite being a nobody, and he champions freedom and autonomy in every new world he discovers in direct opposition to Organization 13. In Kingdom Hearts 3, he masters the power of waking, a direct analog to the life equation. It can bend reality and revitalize sleeping worlds and hearts, bringing them back to life. Sora champions life. My next pick is a protagonist who I believe has mastered the emotional spectrum, Lara Croft of Tomb Raider. We see her run the gambit of human emotion. Lara is empowered by anger towards those who betray her, like Matthias or Anna. She's fueled by a healthy greed, a desire to discover and uncover more of the world, even at the risk of her own life. She uses fear to manipulate her enemies in tactical ambushes and guerrilla combat scenarios. She showed her incredible willpower over and over again, most prominently during the shipwreck in the Dragon's Triangle, where she was forced to survive for the very first time. She stays hopeful that her actions will make a difference in preserving cultural heritage. She shows compassion and deep empathy for the suffering of others, and has an intense love for her parents that endures despite all the loss she suffers. I think Lara would be able to earn the light of a white ring and use it on her continued crusading. And finally, who better to represent freedom than the wind itself, the fastest thing alive, Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic is life. He is freedom, the ideological and ontological opposite to Dr. Eggman, who coldly subjugates and transforms little animals into robots with no will of their own. Sonic represents liberty across every incarnation. In the Archie comics, he's the champion of the freedom fighters. In the IDW comics, he gets into these philosophical debates about how he believes everyone should be free, even his enemies, so that they have a chance to turn over a new leaf. Sonic is self-described as having no master but the wind that blows free. He is a legendary light. He shines so bright that he defeated the End, the cosmological abstract embodiment of death and entropy. He is that guy. But I don't think he's as perfect a pick for the White Lanterns as there could be. If you want to see who I think that is, check out this video here where I did the same concept but in the world of anime. Stay frosty.